Hey, what's going on? E. Jones, bottom to the top hoops.
Black Elvis, what's goody? We in the building.
Yo, L, man, we back with another installment of Bottom to the Top Hoops. Before we get started, as we always do, gotta pay homage and thank the sponsors who help make this happen every week.
Big shout out to T-Mobile.
Yes, sir, from day one. Big shout out to the world famous Harlem Wizards, bringing you the WizFit Challenge, ending up the year. If you need a fundraiser or something to bring your school community together for fun activities and keep the kids moving, you definitely want to check out the WizFit Challenge. Who else we shouting out, L?
Big shout out to Montefiore.
Yes, sir. MMCC holding us down. Big things they're doing with all of the youth in New York City. So we got an interesting topic now. A lot of people have been reaching out, talking about the college recruitment, the portal. Few people that really talk about the things that are prevalent with respect to high school and the role of the high school coach. What that meant when we were coming up, maybe before us, what it means currently, and where it's going in the future, whether that be good or bad. We would like to just kind of chime in on it and talk about the history of it, and then kind of work forward and talk about where it is right now.
Got it.
So, El, your recollection of a high school coach, just give me an idea of starting at the story program at St. Nicholas of Palatine, that being a perennial power. What was the culture there? What was the coach's voice like? What was the expectation when you went into Palatine? First of all, you had to be a really good player to be able to be recruited, air quotes, to play high school basketball there. And once you get there, you know, it's like anything else, they sell you on all of the benefits of coming to the school. And then once you get there, what was your reality?
Well, my reality was we was JV, and he tried to treat it like a college team. So
who was your coach?
Bobby Gonzalez.
Who later went on to coach at Manhattan College and Seton Hall.
Absolutely.
Okay. And
we knew, even back then, we knew he was something special, just the way he handled how he went about his business. You know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, I mean, even when I think back, you know, remember, this is talent time. You know, he was the JV coach and Bob Mackey was the varsity coach, you know, and his preparation was ill. It was way better than Bob Mackey's, and you can tell by the team, you can tell by the record, you know what I mean? Like how he really took his job serious. He was really on it. He would go to other schools, you know, he would watch, he would come back, give us the breakdown for the next game. We got to watch this guy. Hey, this guy's going to be floating on the baseline. Coaches don't do that no more.
Well, scouting is a big part of a coach's job, to have his team prepared, to have her team prepared, to make sure that you guys understand what they're going to try to run and try to take it away. And also where they lack on defense and where we can exploit the other team's weaknesses to be able to create easy offense for ourselves. So now when you speak to that, and I know Gonzo very well, and in his tenure at Manhattan, as well as his tenure at Seton Hall, the one thing that struck me about Gonzo was he was so intense. And when you say his serious, I mean, if I look back at it, I say, you know, as kids, we had a goal to kind of reach the highest level of scholarship basketball. He had the same goal. So he was probably just working a little bit harder than we were. And he understood, because he was a grown-up, what it took to get there. So he looked at Palatine as a stepping stone and said, okay, I'm in a major program. Let me keep pushing. Let me get around some of these high-level athletes. Let me, you know, win, develop, and move on. I think that was Gonzo's approach.
Yes, he did a great job of developing, E. And, you know, that's one of the things that we're lacking now in New York City basketball at some of our high schools. You know, these kids are going in and they're not really being developed.
Well, let's just talk about something. I'll just go to my experience. played for the legendary Gary DeCesar at St. Raymond's, and then went on to Our Savior Lutheran. One of the common themes, along with what we talked about with Gonzo, is the fact that Gary DeCesar was extremely intense, as well as George Booker. Very, very talented players, but no one was bigger than the team, right? It wasn't a threat of anybody transferring. It wasn't about, you got to kind of cater to a player or run offense to a specific guy. We were all pieces to the puzzle, and we were trying to figure out how to become a championship team. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say Gary DeCesar was in control of everything. There were no voluntary workouts. We all wore the same things in practice, off the court, in the game. I remember, and I think I spoke about this on an earlier show, Gary DeCesar didn't allow any players to have tattoos. And then we were in a parochial school, so you couldn't have facial hair. You couldn't wear earrings. Like, there was a militance, if that's a word, about how he ran his program. And he saw it before he did it. Meaning he had a vision of how he wanted it to be. He recruited the athletes to be able to perform at that level. And he went out and executed and won at a high level. And I think that's what coaches may be missing now. A vision, a preparation, and a goal to where they want to be. Like, what are you chasing? What do you want to be? Like, if I could tell you, hey, I'm the New York Dragons, one day I want to have a program that services academics, prepares kids for SATs, competes at a shoe company level, make sure that we keep our integrity in place more than winning. We're going to put character over talent. Those are real goals for my AAU program. So I think some coaches are just saying, I would love to win a championship. But what are the steps you're going to put in to go, like, what is your mission statement as a program? What is your vision? What is your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan? How are you going to recruit? What kind of schedule do you want to play? What kind of creativity? What kind of marketing? What kind of fan base do you want to build up? What is your demographic? Where are you going to recruit from? What kind of kids do you want to recruit? What kind of families do you want in your program? These are all questions I don't know if the coaches now are asking. So you make a distinction between a basketball team and a basketball program. And I've given an earful, El, so you can chime in and kind of just give feedback on some of those thoughts.
All right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said in the beginning, it's just different. When you have coaches like Gary DeCesar, let's look at the high school coaches today. There's not one who compares to a Gary DeCesar, not one. Just as far as structure, just as far as relationships, just as far as resources, just as far as know-how. I mean, when we look at St. Raymond's, and this is not to throw anybody under the bus, this is not to make anybody feel any kind of way, this is just facts. And sometimes it hurts. But when you look at St. Raymond's, ever since Gary left, everybody's been godfathered in. You've been here, you've been an assistant, you've been a part of the program, we'll give you the keys. That's not how you have major programs. It doesn't go that way. You have to be intentional. I'll give you an example. And I'm not saying this because you my boy and Pete and OSL, but when I walk in the gym, you feel it. You feel the intensity. Like, I remember back in the day when we used to have practice at Talent Time, G had a problem with Kojo Lockhart being too cool for school. So everybody got on the baseline. His thing was intensity. If you're going to be too cool for school in practice, guess where you're going to be too cool for school? In the game.
In the game.
He knew that. So he didn't let us get away with nothing, E.
So there's so many things to unpack. There's so many layers that we have to be able to touch on in this short period of time. Now, we could talk about this forever, man. We talked about intensity, and that's kind of a running theme to the show. And you talk about relationships, resources, and being intentional. And then you talk about the success, because you could tell me all you want about, what somebody is about or what they could do or what they're going to do. As a coach, you're judged on a few things. What kind of relationships do you build with your players? How do they do academically, and how do they do when they leave you, and how do you best prepare them? And most of all, let's be honest, you're being hired to coach basketball. So are you winning? And at what level are you winning? And at the end of the day, the ones who get revered are the ones who are able to get it done at a high level. And that's what makes legend. So to that point, maybe some people don't understand what it takes or how to build a championship program. So if you don't know, you should be sitting in on college practices. You should be going to coaches' clinics. You should be seeking mentors of college coaches, NBA coaches who can teach you. You could learn.
Well, E, I gotta say this. You actually have to care. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus, so I won't say names. You have some high school coaches who are AA schools, who are sending kids to major colleges. When the season is over, they're gone. They're not helping their kids with recruitment. They're not helping these kids with placement. They're not making calls. Why? Because they really don't know anyone. I mean, E, when you look at these coaches, first things first, they have to care.
So give me a hypothetical situation of a program that you may have seen or been around or actually watched up close, and kind of tell me what you mean by they don't care.
Okay, well, I'll give you one program.
Program A.
I probably created over 15 mixtapes for the students. So that means I was at practices. That means I went to games on a consistent basis, and I was around the program.
Yep.
Majority of these coaches have no clue. They rely strictly on the AAU.
Uh-huh.
The AAU literally dictates what goes on with their program during the year. Because the AAU coach got so much pull and leverage. Hey, if you don't play my kid, I'm pulling my kid. Imagine somebody telling that to Gary DeCease.
Not gonna happen.
I couldn't imagine Mr. Lloyd calling Bobby Gonzalez. Yeah, you gotta do it. This is my team. This is how it was.
Now, don't get me wrong, there was a certain level of influence, and there may be some strong suggestions or a little, pat on the elbow. I got 7 kids here. I need them to get them a couple of more minutes. They're gonna listen to that. But it's not a strong arm game, because there was plenty of kids from the Gauchos and Riverside who didn't get great minutes like me, right? I played at St. Raymond's. I was a Gaucho kid. They were paying my tuition. And as a junior, when I was at St. Raymond's, I didn't play a bunch of minutes, but Lou or nobody wasn't calling there, because guess what they knew? If you were good enough, you would be on the floor. So parents, stop calling the coaches, please. They don't want to sit your kid on purpose. If he or she is not good enough, they're not going to play. It's not personal. That's just the facts. But for these high school coaches, if you make a promise, you shouldn't be making promises personally. But if you make an agreement with a child as a freshman, and you lay out a path, because I'm pretty sure you have to do some selling to the better kids. We're going to develop you. We're going to make sure you stay the course academically. We're going to make sure that you get the exposure you need. We're going to play a great schedule. We're going to get you to a great school. That is the plan. So if a kid is lazy, more than likely you knew that before you took the kid. So you had a plan, or hopefully a plan, on how to get them out of that laziness. Academically, if the kid struggled, you should have had a plan, whether it's an IEP, tutoring, a coach who's assigned to it, to get that kid the help he or she needs to make sure academically they're performing at a high level. Now, what that requires is probably an inordinate amount of work, time, and effort. But you signed up for that.
You gotta care, E.
That kid.
You gotta care. Some of these people look at it as a job. That's all it is to some of them. And it's a glorified, I get my props kind of job, where I walk in the gym, people acknowledge me because I'm the head coach of such and such, you know. But like I said, I don't see none of these coaches during the summer at some of these tournaments looking at these kids. You know what I mean? Back in the day, like this is, but when we talk about the truth, how New York City basketball is down, it starts with the infrastructure at our high schools. This is why now, when a college is recruiting, they going, you see the hand? They doing this to the high school coach. You understand? They going straight to the AAU program because they already understand this guy's probably here off tenure. He didn't earn this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, I'm going to say this. One of the things that disappoints me the most is the fact that a lot of the high school coaches are really dropping the ball with respect to recruitment on student athletes. They got this old boy system of, you know what, this is a state school, and there's good programs in New York State, there's good programs in New Jersey, but if a student said, you know what, my goal is to get away and experience something else, but the kid is your seventh man, but he's a scholarship level player, or she's a scholarship level player. What are you doing for that kid? And are you just going to do what's easy and send them to the school around the corner because you got a relationship and you don't have to call or send emails or get on Facebook or get on Instagram or call people that know people? Are you going to send them to exposure events? Like, what are you going to do that's out of the box to get these kids recruited? Because what that does is it now infringes on your personal time with your family. And how do you create a balance to say, okay, I'm going to make, because these essentially are now your children. You've taken on that role. And I can speak from my personal experience that I've neglected my own home for the sake of the betterment of somebody else's child.
Yeah, I was just about to go into that. You know, you can tell it.
And if you're a good coach and you mentor kids and you give up yourself to anything, you already feel the pain and the struggle that I'm talking about because you've been through it. You know for yourself that, guess what, I got to figure this out because I don't want to relent on the goal, but I can't neglect home either. And if you're not in that position, you probably are not all in.
Absolutely. Well, let me just say this to add to that. You can see it in the proof in the kids' games. When kids, I'm so happy I have you as a partner and a co-host because every time I get ready to say something like so real, you be like, we can't say that. So I'm going to try to be conscious of not, because we are all in New York City. And yes. I do have to see these people and you deal directly with these people. But you know I'm gangster. I don't really care because I care about the kids benefiting more so than these coaches who's benefiting and they're not putting in any work. Do you really think, can't say schools. All right, I'll say the top 4 Catholic schools in the CHSAA. Not one of those coaches is getting up at 7 in the morning, which means they have to commute, get there for 7. So they probably got to get up at 5:30, 5:15 just to get there at 7, give these kids smoke, knowing that these kids have to get extra smoke because they have to build the confidence. They got to work on the jump shot. They got to work on their endurance. They got to work on their strength and conditioning. That's sacrifice. That's the ultimate sacrifice. Not one of these coaches will do that. So when these parents are looking at where's my kid going for the next 4 years, they have to start taking in consideration just because the school's in the Bronx and it's convenient. No, that's not the reason to send your child there. You have to go where a coach is going to speak to you sincerely and tell you, I got you. I'm going to work. When this kid comes in, like one thing I love to talk about is Pete, when he talked about Maximus. He said, when his mom's, His mom told him, don't make sense for him to come here. If you're not going to take him to another level and put him in a whole nother lane, which means if he's getting recruited by these type of schools, by the time he gets finished with you, he should be getting these type of schools. I don't see that, E. And this is why New York City ball is down. So people got to start doing their research, because you're looking at these coaches, and these coaches are really just there off tenure. Google the word. They're not there because they're good coaches. They're not there because they understand the game. They're there because they've either been grandfathered in or they've been there long enough to become the head coach.
I'm going to say this. We haven't touched on the education part, and I want to just be clear. We're specifically talking about basketball here. So it's not that we're overlooking the fact that education is important and maybe some schools do a great job, and that's cool. But all things being equal, these kids have to, let's just be honest about it. There's a bunch of parents who are choosing schools mainly on the athletic opportunity that will come to their child. Let's just be honest. I went to St. Ray's for basketball. A lot of people is not willing to just jump out of the window and be like, yo, you know, it's about academics. And some parents, kudos to you, I get it. I'm not saying you should go somewhere that has poor academics, but if you look at the top schools from a parochial standpoint, unless you're talking about Regis or Xavier or Fordham Prep, everybody else is in the same. You could tell me till you blue in the face about how great the academics are, but the reality of it is, I think the education is pretty similar. So now if you're going to recruit, at the end of the day, what's going to separate you? Because we already know the type of kids that are going to Regis and Fordham Prep and Xavier. They're not going to get the top athletic kids, because oftentimes kids who are really smart and could go to Fordham Prep, if they're talented, they might bypass it because they want a better basketball opportunity. Let's not mix words. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not act like we're not talking about what we're talking about. We're talking about New York City basketball and the lack of the coach's ability to stay at the level it was once at. And we're failing the kids. And I'm challenging coaches, if you don't have the time to put in, it's okay, but find assistant coaches, find young guys who are hungry that will train these kids to get them ready and prepared for you when they get to the varsity level and they can compete. And now at least we're talking about something realistic.
Let's give some props, because
yes.
we talk Stepanak.
Yes.
I've heard from at least 7 to 10 people how kids go to Stepanak, they develop, they become better students, and they're winning over there. But the key is development. Like you have these schools and they're not, that these coaches don't even know how to develop.
Well, Coach Swain is there at 7 a.m.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
I mean,
North Carolina last year, Duke this year. These are the type of kids that and he has something to do with it. The other coaches have nothing to do with these kids. See, they're benefiting. Like, oh,
but he's
yeah, this school.
He's the assistant. He's the assistant. So the head coach knows you're the development guy. You get up at 7. I'll come in and do all of the other stuff. And they created a system. And big shout out to Chris Williams at St. Raymond's, because I know he's a Breakfast Club guy. He gets up and he develops kids. And I think an example of that is Malachi Smith. I watched the development, and I know Chris was instrumental in that. And I know the time and effort that he put into that. So there's isolated cases, but I think as a whole, we're not where we need to be. There needs to be a new regime of coaches and young guys who really want to become coaches and guys who are out there playing. I'm going to say this. there's some people who are on the cusp and will play basketball and maybe are still playing in summer leagues and have something to give back to the game. You could be the next guardians of the game, the 28-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. Start to coach, man. Start to give back to these kids because we need that young energy, that passion, and those people who genuinely want to help. Get with your high schools or people that mentored you and start giving back to these kids. We need more people to be on the other side. Everybody's a hoop.
Yeah. And we need people to do it the right way. This is the problem. Like, I've literally went to trainings and kids are going half speed and kids are just having fun. Training is supposed to be
challenging.
When you leave there, you're supposed to be like, I'm going home and chill. I'm going to go eat and chill. Kids are still going to play ball after leaving training. And they're not getting better. I don't see the development aspect. Like, you can't start with me and like 7 months later, you're still at the same speed. You still don't shoot the same way every time. Then that means you're not getting the fundamentals of the game. You're just playing ball.
There's a difference between somebody who plays basketball and a basketball player. You want to be a basketball player and not somebody who plays basketball. And we laid it out, man.
You saved some people's butts today, E. I just got to tell you that, and I need the people to know I was willing to say names. E said, pipe it down. Oh, you're bugging. So, props to you, man, for being politically correct. Shouts and props to you.
At the end of the day, right, I'm willing to say anything to anybody. But if there's an issue, I just feel like I'm going to say it directly to them and try and get some benefit from it. And I know people are sensitive, and I know this podcast gets in a lot of people's space and a lot of people talk about it. So I want to keep it.
Needs to be said, though. Some of it was said, but it needs to be said. You know what I mean? This is why, because this is one of the reasons, like, we have coaches in New York City who are cocky for no reason. You don't do nothing. You don't know nobody. You ain't got no relationships with no Division I coaches. You don't even know no JUCOs, bro. Would you go sit down and give the assistant the job because now your program can be looked upon as official? You understand? This is what's going on. And it ain't just one school. It's like 3 schools.
Yeah, bro.
All of major schools.
We could do this all day.
Yo, E, I think it was a great show, man.
Man, only if they knew the things that went into actually producing this show and what we got to do to make it happen, man. Kudos to you. And I think it was a good one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. Yo, I think it was a great show. Big shout out to the team. Jerry Ice, Steve Jones, City Legends. Make sure you check it out on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple TV, bcomtv.com. L, you got the last word, brother.
Big shout out to the team, man. Like you said, man, shout out to SAP. Shout out to my whole Decisions team. Shout out to Off the Grid. Shout out to you. Great weekend last week, man. That's why we didn't drop the podcast. We wanted our viewers to be able to watch that AAU smoke. So, and you put that together. Great job, man. And the kids look really fantastic, man. And that's really it. You know how we do. Shout out to the man upstairs, man.
Stay tuned. I'm sorry. I know you always get the last word, so you got to go on top.
All good.
But stay tuned. OSL Unsigned coming this week. Kids in the portal, JUCO kids, prep kids, any OSL alumni that's unsigned. Just like we did the recruitment day, we're going to do the unsigned OSL day. First,
how to say this? You shouldn't have said that. You should have left me alone and let me finish. E, what other schools in New York City are doing these type of events at their school on a regular basis? Not one. Not one. Only OSL, brother. Come on, this is ridiculous. But they walk around cocky. Get out of here.
I mean, you got to have creativity. You got to have resources. You got to have a team. It doesn't happen just from just wanting to do it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and a lot of sacrifice. So, you know, if it was meant for everybody to be special, everybody would be.
That's true.
So it creates a lane for us to do what we do.
Yeah, that's why you guys are rising to the top like cream, huh?
We are